An episode of Dr. Dolittle in real life. This is wildlife care at New England Wildlife Center.
These are the most disenfranchised animals that veterinarians care for.
Established in 1983, its headquarters in South Weymouth to its recently acquired branch on Cape Cod, this nonprofit sees a wide range of patients.
There's 225 different species of wild animals that come to us, and there's about 150, 175 different species of non-traditional pets.
Even without insurance, these patients receive a comprehensive health care.
Each animal gets its own individual chart, medical chart, and they get tracked day by day.
Everything from x-rays, blood work, to a special diet. I bet they are so grateful. How grateful are they?
They're not very grateful at all. Our patients are not grateful. I mean, our patients want to be free. You know, it's like girls want to have fun. Wild animals want to be free.
Like this bunny who had a tibia fracture. Today, he gets released.
So the goal is for a wild animal to be released back into the wild, it needs to be self-sustainable. So that means it has to be able to find its own food, has to be able to escape danger, has to be able to find protection.
The majority of patients here are victims of human actions.
I would say 25% of our animals come in because they have lead poisoning. Probably 20% come in because they have rodenticide poisoning. So these are the after effects of the impact that people have had on these animals.
With that said, the mission here is simple.
Our goal and our mission is to be a safety net and to be a safe haven for sick, injured, and orphan wildlife in Massachusetts. We don't feel that we are good enough biologists to decide what animals are important and which animals are not important.
In other words, this is a good thing we're doing. We're trying to make these animals have a second chance. Any animal that doesn't come here is probably going to die in the wild. You know, it's either going to be eaten by somebody else, which is part of the natural cycles, or it's going to just lie and suffer until it passes away.
Like this harrowing story of a mama possum brought in with a split jaw from being hit by a car.
Police brought him in and he had a fractured jaw. Essentially right down the center of his jaw had split and separated.
Only to find out that he was a she, carrying 9 extra patients inside her pouch.
And they were so small at that point. Dr. Patel devised a way that she could actually wire the jaw shut. Now, this is not something we've ever done before with a possum, meaning that we had to really closely monitor to make sure the babies were still feeding, everyone was healthy, it wasn't overtaxing on mom. But she did really, really well. And actually the feeding tube came out a few days ago, earlier than we expected. Mom is eating on her own with this piece of wire in there, self-feeding no problem, and all 9 babies have managed to stay attached and are growing every single day.
And the miracles do not stop there. Take the story of this Canadian goose.
This goose, was not having a successful existence with humans. You know, living around humans was not going well for this goose.
Animal control had been tracking this elusive goose, a victim of a crime.
It was found that he also had gunshot inside of him. He also was suffering from lead poisoning. And he actually died on the table, then was resuscitated, and then had a second operation, died on the table, was resuscitated. This was an amazing goose. And he was released back to the wild about 2 months later, which was incredible.
Incredible, because survival odds are poor.
Of the wild animals that we treat, 50% at best, 50% of them will make it back to the wild. 50% are going to die in the process. They're either going to be deliberately euthanized because they're carrying a disease that we don't want to spread to people or to other animals, or they have an injury that we just can't treat.
There are also budget and infrastructure factors that threaten wildlife mortality.
We have denied treatment of wild animals for both a lack of funding, but also a lack of stamina, also a lack of space. Like right this very minute in this building, we have 55 raccoons. 55 baby raccoons that have mothers have been killed on the road, have befallen some sort of injury. Now realize each raccoon family has five babies in it, so we're talking about 11 families here but we can't care. These animals need to be fed every 20 minutes. All that screaming you hear in the background is raccoons begging for food, and there are people in there feeding constantly, almost from sunup to sundown.
Take funding, for example. The hospital is by law required to provide the same level of care as of commercial veterinarian hospital without the state or federal aid.
If it was in a commercial setting, the average cost for every one of those animals would be about $100 per day. $100 a day, and multiply it times the 5,000 animals that we see that come into our centers. And then we multiply that times the average number of animals, the average number of days that these animals stay in the hospital. You're going to come up with a figure that is somewhere between $4 million and $7 million. Now that does not even come close to what our budgets are.
We are bound and constricted by how much funding we can raise. And I would say, it caps how many animals we can treat. It also has this, there's always an edge to, okay, will we make it till next year? Will we make it to the following year? Because nothing is guaranteed.
What's your understanding to why wildlife care isn't receiving funding?
Everybody thinks it should be funded, but nobody wants to fund it.
Caring for wildlife seems a little bit off-center because we're caring for something that doesn't directly impact us. But the problem is it does impact us. The health of the environment and the health of the habitats we're living on is going to reflect in the health of who we are as people.
The uncertainty looming around funding comes as the need soars.
The need for veterinary care and rehabilitative care for wildlife continues to grow. Every year there's more and more because encroachment on the land is more and more, and they were here first. So the more we cut down trees, the more we disturb habitat, the more we introduce chemicals, the more that wildlife need from us.
The hospital tries to supplement its funding through their Odd Pet Vet program.
They bring in birds and reptiles, amphibians, and those animals get cared for here for a price, like a commercial practice, and 100% of those dollars go to the nonprofit, and that gives us about 20% of our funding.
In addition, the public can also drop off their odd pets at the hospital while they are away. There are a lot of areas of need, but what is the concentration right now?
That's a great question, because it's everything. I would say, though, that right now, the biggest thing we need in fundraising is individual donors.
As for now, the hospital's most valuable resource is its volunteers. Through its community approach efforts, the hospital works to bridge the gap between the community and nature.
We can't read about it in a book. We can't stay in and watch it on television. We have to be able to have safe contact, not unsafe contact.
Safe contact with the wild is introduced here through the wide range of classes, internships, and community service opportunities that are offered to all.
Howard told me to save the extra food out until the photography people get here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right, now what kind of turtles are these guys?
So those are also Diamondback terrapins.
All right, that's the same thing as what we saw in the other room.
New England Wildlife Center's doors are open here in South Weymouth or on Cape Cod. Come and get acquainted with your wild neighbors.
And learn about the animals from their backyard, learn about the wildlife that lives in our area. And they get to work right alongside of us with professional veterinarians and veterinary technicians and rehabilitators so that they are able to bring those animals back to the wild.